Every person who has ever controlled you used the same weapon. Not strength, not money, not authority, information. They knew what you wanted. They knew what you feared. They knew what you cared about. And the moment they had that information, they had you. Completely, silently, without you even realizing it. That's how manipulation works. It doesn't come at you with force. It doesn't announce itself. It slides in through the gaps you left open, through the things you said without thinking, through the reactions you couldn't control, through the needs you made visible. And every single time you've been manipulated in your life, it wasn't because the other person was smarter than you. It was because they knew more about you than you knew about them. Machiavelli understood this 500 years ago. He spent his entire life studying power, how it's gained, how it's lost, how ordinary people get destroyed by those who understand the game. And in all his observations, he kept returning to one central truth. One rule that separated the controllable from the untouchable. That rule is this: the person who controls information controls power, and the most dangerous information you can ever give anyone is the truth about you, not your name, not your job, not your history. The truth about what you want, the truth about what you fear, the truth about what makes you react. Today, I'm going to break down the one Machiavelli rule that makes you completely impossible to manipulate. And I'm going to show you exactly how to apply it in every area of your life. But before we go deeper, I need you to drop this affirmation in the comments right now. I am unreadable, I am untouchable, I am in control. Let's begin. The rule is simple, devastating in its simplicity. Never let anyone know your full hand. That's it, that's the rule. Machiavelli wrote, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are." Most people live their entire lives doing the exact opposite of this. They broadcast their desires. They wear their emotions on their face. They explain their plans before executing them. They reveal their fears in arguments. They show exactly what they need in negotiations. And then they wonder why they keep losing. Here's what you need to understand. A manipulator needs 3 things to control you. They need to know what you want so they can offer it or threaten to take it away. They need to know what you fear so they can weaponize it against you. And they need to know how you react so they can predict and exploit your behavior. Remove those 3 things, and manipulation becomes impossible. They're building a puppet, but there are no strings attached. This one rule has 8 dimensions, 8 specific ways to apply it in your daily life. Master these, and you become what Machiavelli called the prince who cannot be moved. The one who sees everything and reveals nothing. Let's break them down. Number 1, desire concealment. Never show what you want. This is the most basic application of the rule, and the most violated. Think about the last time you wanted something. A promotion, a relationship, approval from someone you respected. What did you do? You probably showed it. Maybe obviously, maybe subtly, but you showed it. You worked harder visibly hoping someone would notice. You made yourself available hoping they'd appreciate it. You changed your behavior hoping they'd reward it. And in doing so, you handed them power over you completely. Because now they know what you want. And the moment they know what you want, they control whether you get it. Machiavelli wrote, "A man who wants to make a profession of goodness in everything must necessarily come to grief among so many who are not good." The world doesn't reward visible desire. It exploits it. Here's how desire concealment works in practice. In negotiations, never reveal what outcome you need. Need to close this deal by Friday, act as though you could walk away tomorrow. Need this apartment tour 3 others first. Want this job more than anything. Let them feel the weight of possibly losing you. The moment the other person believes you need something from them, the balance shifts. They become the authority. You become the petitioner. And petitioners don't win. In relationships, never show desperation. The person who texts first every time. The person who always clears their schedule. The person who makes it obvious they'd do anything to keep someone. They don't get respected. They get used. This isn't about playing games. It's about understanding that visible desire makes you predictable, and predictability makes you vulnerable. The most powerful move in any interaction is the genuine ability to walk away, not as a bluff, as a tactic, but as a real option you've built into your life. When you have other options, when you've built other opportunities, when you don't need any single person or outcome to survive, your desire naturally becomes concealed, because you actually don't need it that badly. That's the deepest version of this principle. It's not about hiding your feelings. It's about building a life where your feelings don't make you desperate. Number 2, emotional opacity. Never let your reactions become readable. Your emotions are a map, and if you keep showing them, anyone paying attention will learn exactly how to navigate you. You get angry when people challenge your intelligence. They'll challenge your intelligence to throw you off balance. You get anxious when there's conflict. They'll manufacture conflict to keep you compliant. You brighten up when someone praises you. They'll use flattery to soften your judgment before asking for something. Every emotional reaction you show in public is data, and data in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. Machiavelli wrote, "The lion cannot protect himself from traps, and the fox cannot defend himself from wolves. One must therefore be a fox to recognize traps and a lion to frighten wolves." The fox doesn't reveal its awareness. It moves, it watches, it appears calm, and then it acts. Emotional opacity doesn't mean feeling nothing. It means controlling what you display. You can be furious inside while your face stays neutral. You can be thrilled inside while your tone stays measured. You can be terrified inside while your posture stays steady. This is not suppression. This is strategy. Think about the most powerful people you know. Not the loudest ones. The most powerful. They don't flinch when criticized. They don't glow when complimented. They hear both with the same even expression. And that evenness makes them impossible to read, which makes them impossible to manipulate. Here's a practical exercise. The next time someone says something designed to provoke you an insult, a criticism, a loaded comment, pause for 2 full seconds before responding. In those 2 seconds, decide what emotion is useful to display. Not what you feel. What is useful? Sometimes showing nothing is the most powerful response. Sometimes asking a calm question is. Sometimes a slight smile is all you need. But the key is choice. You choose your display. Nobody forces it out of you. When your emotions become a choice instead of a reflex, you become impossible to destabilize. And a person who cannot be destabilized cannot be controlled. Number 3, strategic silence on plans. Never announce what you're going to do before you do it. Most people talk about their plans constantly. They announce their goals on social media. They tell people about the project before it's started. They share the strategy before it's proven. They explain the move they're about to make in the middle of making it. And then they wonder why things fall apart, why people suddenly oppose them, why their opportunities disappear before they can execute. Machiavelli was blunt. It is better to act and repent than not to act and regret. But there's a darker observation underneath that. When you act without announcing, the opposition has no time to prepare. When you announce before acting, you hand your enemies the blueprint to your defeat. This applies everywhere, in the workplace. If you're applying for a promotion, don't tell your co-workers. Don't hint about it. Don't let your behavior change in obvious ways. Simply do the work, have the right conversations, and let the results speak. The moment you announce your ambition, you activate competition you didn't have to face. In relationships, if you're thinking about ending something, if you're considering a difficult conversation, if you're planning a boundary, don't warn, don't hint, don't test the waters, plan, decide, execute. Every warning you give is a chance for the other person to prepare their counter and neutralize your position completely. In personal development, stop announcing the person you're going to become. Stop posting about the gym before the habit is formed. Stop telling people about the business before it's built. Execution speaks. Announcement just creates pressure and invites skepticism. There's something else that happens when you stop announcing. You stop needing external validation for your decisions. You stop waiting for people to approve of your plans before you execute them. You become internally driven, and an internally driven person cannot be controlled from the outside. Let your results introduce you. Let your actions explain your plans after the fact, never before. Number 4, vulnerability protection. Never expose your weaknesses in enemy territory. Everyone has weaknesses. That's not the problem. The problem is advertising them to people who will use them. Most people share their insecurities thinking it creates connection. And sometimes it does, with the right people in the right context. But with the wrong people, every vulnerability you reveal becomes a targeting system. Tell someone you're insecure about your intelligence, and they'll make subtle comments about your competence during arguments. Tell someone you're afraid of being abandoned, and they'll use distance as punishment. Tell someone you struggled financially, and they'll undermine your authority in conversations about money. Machiavelli wrote, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally." The fool shares too much too soon and spends years recovering from the consequences. The wise person is selective, careful, and strategic. They protect their weaknesses until they know exactly who they're trusting. This doesn't mean never being vulnerable. Vulnerability has its place in deep, proven relationships, with people who have demonstrated loyalty over time, in contexts where honesty genuinely serves the relationship. But vulnerability with unproven people, with rivals, with anyone who has shown they don't have your best interests at heart, that's not honesty. That's ammunition delivery. Here's a practical framework. Ask yourself one question before sharing anything sensitive. If this person used this information against me, what would it cost me? If the answer is nothing, share freely. If the answer is significant, stay quiet. Your weaknesses are part of your story. They belong to you, but they don't belong to anyone who hasn't earned the right to carry them responsibly. Protect them accordingly. Number 5, unpredictability as armor. Never let anyone fully map your patterns. Predictability is a vulnerability. When people can anticipate you, they can control you. When they know you'll always react the same way, they can engineer situations that force the reaction they want. You always forgive. They'll always push boundaries knowing forgiveness is coming. You always say yes when pressured in public. They'll always pressure you in public. You always back down from conflict. They'll always use conflict to get what they want. The moment your patterns become visible, you become manageable. Machiavelli observed this in warfare and politics constantly. He saw that an enemy who can predict your movements can plan around them, and a manipulator who can predict your reactions can build an entire strategy around exploiting them. The solution is strategic unpredictability, not random chaos, not the kind of inconsistency that makes you unreliable or untrustworthy. Strategic variation in how you respond when you respond and whether you respond at all. Sometimes you forgive immediately. Sometimes you let the silence stretch for days. Sometimes you address an issue directly. Sometimes you simply change your behavior without discussion. Sometimes you engage. Sometimes you don't. This variation keeps people slightly off balance. Not frightened, not confused, just uncertain enough that they can't build a manipulation strategy around your patterns. Here's a simple way to introduce this into your life. Break one predictable response per week. If you always respond to messages immediately, wait a few hours. If you always agree in group settings, offer a thoughtful question instead. If you always back down at a certain point in disagreements, hold your position one more round. These aren't games, they're recalibrations. Reminders to yourself and to others that you're not a machine producing predictable outputs on demand. You're a person making choices, and choices cannot be pre-programmed. An unpredictable person is impossible to manipulate with precision. because every plan built around your expected behavior collapses the moment you behave differently. Number 6. Information asymmetry. Know more about them than they know about you. This is the active dimension of the rule. Everything else is about protecting your information. This is about gathering theirs. Machiavelli was obsessed with this principle. He wrote about how the powerful must study human nature, must understand the people around them, must know the landscape of ambitions, fears, and alliances in their environment. Not because knowledge is interesting, because knowledge is power. When you know more about someone than they know about you, you hold an asymmetric advantage in every single interaction. You know what they care about, so you can speak directly to what matters to them. You know what they fear, so you understand the levers they're sensitive to. You know their patterns, so you can anticipate their moves. You know their alliances, so you understand the full context behind their actions. And they know none of this about you. This creates a situation where they're navigating blind while you have a detailed map. Here's how to build information asymmetry consistently. Ask more questions than you answer. When someone asks about you, respond briefly and redirect with a genuine question about them. People love talking about themselves. Let them. Every word they say is information you didn't have before. Observe before speaking in any new environment, in a new job, a new relationship, a new social group. Spend the first period watching. Who talks to whom? Who defers to whom? Who has real influence versus visible title? You can learn in 2 weeks of observation what others miss in 2 years of participation. Remember specifics. When someone tells you something that matters to them, remember it. Reference it later. Not manipulatively, genuinely. It shows attention, it builds trust, and it continuously reveals more, because people share more with those who remember what they've already shared. Listen past the words. What people say tells you what they want you to know. What they don't say tells you what they're protecting. Notice the gaps. Notice the hesitations. Notice the topics they navigate carefully around. Information is gathered in silence, and the person who speaks the least in any room often understands it the most. Number 7. The illusion of openness. Appear transparent without actually being transparent. This is the most sophisticated application of the rule, and the one that makes truly unreadable people so disarming. Most people expect guarded people to act guarded. They expect walls to look like walls. So when someone appears open, warm, expressive, and communicative, their guard drops. They assume they're dealing with someone honest and transparent, and they share more than they otherwise would. But appearing open and being open are 2 completely different things. Machiavelli wrote, "It is necessary to be a fox to discover the snares, and a lion to terrify the wolves." The fox doesn't announce its cleverness. It presents itself as approachable, manageable, non-threatening, and it learns everything about the environment while revealing nothing essential about itself. Here's how the illusion of openness works in practice. Share the surface and protect the depth. You can talk freely about your interests, your opinions on neutral topics, your observations about the world. This creates a genuine sense of openness. But you protect your real desires, your fears, your plans, and your specific vulnerabilities. The things that can actually be used against you. Reveal the past, not the future. You can share stories about where you've been, old struggles, past experiences. These create connection and relatability without giving anyone power over where you're going. Share your history generously. Guard your future completely. Express reactions and control responses. You can let people see that you feel things, that you care, that things affect you. Emotional connection is valuable and real, but the specific reactions that reveal your exact pressure points, those stay hidden. The person who applies this principle becomes simultaneously the most likable and the least readable person in any room. People feel close to them. They feel like they know them. But when they try to predict them, when they try to leverage them, they realize they actually know very little about what matters. That's the masterwork of this principle. True power doesn't feel like power. It feels like warmth. It feels like openness. And by the time anyone realizes the difference, you're already 3 moves ahead. Number 8. The freedom anchor. Always have options. Protect them like your life depends on it. This is the foundation of everything. Every other principle rests on this one. You can practice all 7 of the others. You can be emotionally controlled, strategically silent, unpredictable, information asymmetric. But if underneath all of that you have no real options, you remain vulnerable. Because ultimately manipulation works by threatening what you cannot afford to lose. And if there's something you absolutely cannot afford to lose, one job, one relationship, one source of income, one source of approval, then a manipulator who identifies that thing has you. No matter how controlled your face is, no matter how measured your words are. Machiavelli wrote, "The one who adapts his policy to the times prospers, and likewise, the one whose policy clashes with the demands of the times does not." To adapt, you must have options. Options require preparation. Preparation requires foresight. The freedom anchor is about building real alternatives into every major area of your life before you need them. Multiple income streams, so no single employer owns your compliance. A social circle broad enough that losing one friendship doesn't collapse your support system. Skills developed beyond your current role, so you can leave any position without starting from zero. A relationship with yourself stable enough that loneliness doesn't force you into bad decisions. This is not paranoia. This is architecture. You're building a life structure that has no single points of failure, no single lever that when pulled makes everything collapse. Here's the deep truth about the freedom anchor. It's not primarily about the options themselves. It's about what having options does to your psychology. When you know you can walk away, you stop being afraid of walking away. When you stop being afraid of losing something, that something can no longer be used to control you. The threat loses its teeth. The leverage evaporates entirely. That is the ultimate expression of the one rule. Make yourself impossible to manipulate, not just by hiding information, but by genuinely, structurally removing the things that make you manipulable in the first place. Build your options, protect your freedom, and never let yourself become completely dependent on anyone. You've just learned the 8 dimensions of Machiavelli's one rule. Never let anyone know your full hand. Conceal your desires. Guard your emotional reactions. Stay silent on your plans. Protect your vulnerabilities. Break your patterns. Gather more information than you give. Appear open without being open. And anchor yourself in genuine freedom through real options. This isn't a philosophy of coldness. It isn't a strategy for isolation. It's a framework for existing in the world with your power completely intact. For building relationships from a position of genuine choice rather than desperate need. For moving through every room knowing that nobody in it has the leverage to control you. Machiavelli said it plainly. Men are so simple of mind and so much dominated by their immediate needs that a deceitful person will always find plenty who are ready to be deceived. The protection against deception isn't suspicion. It's self-knowledge. It's structure. It's the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing to prove and nothing to fear. Because the person who is impossible to manipulate is not the most powerful person because they have more. They're the most powerful because they need less. And when you need less from others, you become exactly what Machiavelli described as the ideal prince. The one who is both feared and admired, not because of what they take, but because of what they can never be forced to give. Now I want you to do one thing. Pick the dimension of this rule that you've been most neglecting, not the hardest one, the one you already know you've been giving away without realizing it. Practice just that one for the next 7 days. Notice how the dynamic shifts. Notice who becomes unsettled by the change, that discomfort you cause in others. That's proof they were relying on your predictability, and now they can't. If this changed something in how you think about power and protection, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more content like this. And drop a comment telling me which of the 8 dimensions you're starting with. Until next time, stay unreadable, stay unpredictable, stay untouchable.